So I have been looking at my own skills and like the things that I know how to do really well that maybe other people don't know. And so I think I might start like a series of like instructional videos on like how to do things and how I do things. I don't know. Let me know if you want to see that. But I know one thing that I've struggled with a lot over the years is memorization. So I did competitive Bible quizzing when I was in high school. And I made it to what you call like the national level of competition one year. And I did regionals quite a few years, probably like, I don't know, like 3 or 4. And so a big portion of that is learning how to memorize huge chunks of the Bible, like entire chapters effectively, so that you can quote them or like reference information in them during a quiz. So I would say I'm pretty good at memorizing things. I've memorized chunks of Hebrews. I know I can quote through Hebrews 1 like flawlessly. I was able to do like Hebrews chapter 2 and 3 at one point, but I've kind of let those slide. And then like a bunch of other chapters that I've never been able to fully quote through, but I've gotten entire like portions of, and like I've been like pretty close to being able to quote through. So I feel like I have a lot of experience with memorizing things. And a lot of the information that you get online on how to memorize just wasn't effective for me. I don't know what it was, but for some reason it never worked for me. So I kind of had to find my own methods of doing things that tend to be different than how other people memorize. So if you if you are looking at memorizing things and you have found great success with the method where like you go through and like you say the first word like 5 times, then you say it 5 times without looking, then you do the same thing with the second word and you keep going until you have a full verse memorized. If that works for you, leave this video. You're not going to need it. But if you are struggling with that, if you have not been able to get that to work, this is probably for you. Hopefully what I do and how I've found to cope with the fact that I can't do that, kind of helps you out a little bit. Um, so without further ado, I guess let's just get on into it. Okay, so I have my planner right here. And this right here is the core of memorization for me. So I remember reading, this was several years ago, probably, oh man, it would have been like my sophomore year of high school. I read somewhere that if you listen to something 100 times, you will memorize it. And I really liked that idea because listening to something is not that difficult. Like for me to sit down and go through a verse and like do the 1 word, 2 word, 3 word, 4 word, to do that is not only really, really boring, but like I don't feel like I retain it. So it's just like 20 minutes that I'll never get back, and it doesn't do anything for me because it takes so much review to keep it there. But what I found is that if I listen to chapters over and over and over and over again, even if I'm not fully paying attention, I not only end up soaking up all of the wording and like what's in the chapter, but I end up memorizing it. My thing was always like I would do puzzles while I listened to it. And then I also really like writing the chapter out. And then like it's kind of a game with myself too, to see how long I can go, like how much I can remember from like the original while I'm writing it. So like I'll try and remember like a whole sentence and write that out before I have to look back over at it. My planner essentially, this is what it looks like. This is what I did for Hebrews. And so these big boxes, like right here, each, I use graph paper, if you can see. But I mark 100 squares, and I mark, it's like 25 in a row and then 4 up and down, and then I mark every 5th square just so that I can easily reference how many I've done. And then the little boxes of 4 over here are for writing it out. In doing that, normally by the time I finish all of that, I'm pretty close to memorizing it. Obviously, 100 times is a lot if you have a really, really long chapter because that's 800 minutes. But the Bible Gateway app has a lot of chapters, especially from the shorter books, that are like 2 minutes. And so that's 200 minutes. That's like a little over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. You could literally do that in one sitting if you wanted to. I normally don't, but you could. Theoretically, you could. And then you throw in writing it out 4 times. I normally try and write it out like once every 25 times so that I'm getting that repetition in there. Um, and yeah, it works really well for me. This has been my method for a solid couple of years. I think the only thing that's a little bit more difficult about this is that you don't have it automatically memorized when it's finished. It still takes just a little bit of like effort from you. So normally around 50 times I start saying it along with the audio. I force myself to say it even if I don't know it. Like I just kind of stumble through words, but in the act of saying it with the audio, I remember what the audio is saying that I didn't say, and normally it works out. Presuming I've been saying it with the audio, it normally comes pretty naturally to me. The only thing that I usually have to do then is I'll sit down with like a human person. This is where it gets difficult because you need to rely on somebody else's schedule, but you sit down with somebody who doesn't mind spending like 15 minutes with you, and you just start talking. And if you stumble or mess up or like forget, normally just if I forget where I am, I'll have them help me out and give me the next like chunk and then sticky note that area. And then once that area is sticky noted, I can go back then and sit down with my Bible and just run through that transition a couple of times and make sure that I get that stuck in my head. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Like there was one chapter, Hebrews chapter 2, that like the transition from one section to the next, for some reason, I just could not get. It took me like a week. I knew what the next transition was as soon as I got there, but like I just couldn't make the jump from this to this. It was horrible. And like I said, this might not be for everybody. I know it takes a lot more time than just going back through the verses, but for me, I really like this because I haven't looked at Hebrews 1 in months. It's been since January, if that, since I looked at it. So 6 months. I haven't looked at it in 6 months, and I can still quote it almost flawlessly, which makes me really happy because I don't want to just like memorize stuff for the sake of memorizing it and then forget it. Like my purpose in memorization is to, oh my goodness, remember it. I get excited about it. Hopefully that helps you guys out too. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to help with anything that I forgot to explain in this video. But I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this helped you. Have a great week.